Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Subscribe to that as well.
Also, check out our friends at deck.com/ham, John.
Deck.com/ham. If you have a truck, if you're a working man, get on this right now. Deck.com/ham.
Makes organizing, accessing, protecting, securing, and everything you need so much easier.
Do it.
On the Ross Tucker podcast, Adam Lefkoe said that he thinks people are more excited about off seasons in their sports. Now, he identified football, but he said he was talking about all sports. More excited about the off seasons than the actual seasons. People are more interested in the NFL draft and free agency, and during the season, they care more about their fantasy team than the wild card race. I think it's untrue. And the reason I wanted to address it is because Ross Tucker then retweets the video. It's got, as of whatever, early in the morning on Tuesday, 20,000 views on the video. I think people will regurgitate it. It's a bad take. Don't repeat it. Ross Tucker retweeted it, John, and said, is this true? The answer is unequivocally no. It is not true. What have I preached? You and I have talked about this for years. The games. NFL games are the most valuable property that anybody has in all of sports outside of owning the actual teams. And honestly, I hadn't thought about it until just now. I'd probably rather own the TV rights than one individual team. I mean, it is so valuable. I guess with the team, it's probably the way to go. But the games,
you get
John,
to reap the $100 billion.
Yeah. The games. The games do $15 million. The Sunday Night Football is the #1 TV show, 10 years running, no competition. Yeah, the NFL draft this year did like $14 million. It was an incredibly huge draft. That's once a year. It was an outlier draft because of all the big-name quarterbacks that were in it. And it's not big. The games are doing $15 million a week, maybe 16, maybe 17. The games. All this other stuff is great because of the games. The games are the biggest
it's not
thing.
true. But Lefkoe is an NBA guy now, works for TNT, hosts the show on Tuesday night with Shaq and Dwayne Wade. In the NBA, the offseason, the movement is bigger than the games. Their games no longer rate. The playoffs
I'm not even
are in
positive
shambles.
that's true.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if they did an NBA offseason free agency show, the talk would not be bigger than a game rating. It would not be.
Well, no, but I think...
LeBron's decision's big, but you don't get that every year.
I think media people in the space, their podcasts, their television shows and their videos that they put out in the NBA space do bigger deals about trades, about guys demanding trades, guys moving teams. And now definitely in the NBA, the regular season, no one watches anymore. The playoffs kind of hit or miss depending on what brand is in there. The NFL is in a completely different universe. And this was my issue with Brooks and Bryson, is the NFL does not relate to any of these other fucking sports. Because like you said, their games, the Jags-Texans Thursday night, the shittiest game possible, will still get 10 million people watching. You could add up the last 5 NBA playoff games, and it probably wouldn't equal that, right? The last week of NBA playoff games. They have nothing in common with these other leagues. And my issue with golf is, as a diehard golf guy, you're fighting for this. There is no #2 sport in America. But Lefkoe has become an NBA guy. In the NBA little ecosystem, I think they believe that they're #2. And the data would say, you just follow Ethan Strauss, they are no longer that. I don't know if it's baseball. I don't know if it's golf. It just depends on the time of year and what event's going on. But in the other sports, some of that stuff does matter. Like right now in the baseball little bubble, talking about the stuff on the ball, suspending guys, but with pay, that is in football. That stuff matters a lot too. We like talking about BSing during the week. But when the game comes on, it's the only sport that you can guarantee that fucking a shitload of people are going to be on their couch and watching. It's the only sport. And that's where your whole take is, it's not comparable to all the other stuff. And they also have great drama too. But their drama equals to the game.
Well, but he's talking about off-season. So your in-season drama is helped by the fact that you have games. So to me, yeah, occasionally you get some free agency story that really matters. Occasionally you get a draft that's massive. But the games happen so often that I would argue with every sport. Baseball hot stove, I don't care who the free agent is not going to consistently be a better talking point for your average fan than even their game. You can tell me baseball ratings are down, NBA, whatever. Their game, the stuff you do around the games is still going to be bigger than the stuff that happens when there's no games.
Let's be real about the hot stove. PG&E turned out the power. hot stove now lasts for fucking 5 months. Like
Yeah,
a hot stove's dead.
Right. But my point is, pick whatever you got. The games, the stuff that happens around your games is still going to be bigger than the stuff that doesn't happen around your games.
Well, yeah. To me, the NBA, or excuse me, the NFL's greatest point of difference right now is no matter what, when I turn on the game, one, the star players that they're playing in that game, I just know I'm going to get their best effort. And I know that they're going to play if they're healthy. In baseball, we talked about it with DeGrom. Like at any moment, the sweet pitcher can get yanked out of the game, right? And in baseball, also hitters, like you just get some games off. In basketball, they've proven that the guys don't even play. Football has a point of difference that their game, like Patrick Mahomes, week 11's like, I'm just going to take the day off and just kind of cruise toward the end of the season. Like that's just not going to happen. And then when you're watching the game, unless they get injured, they're going to play. Like I think they have so many advantages that are just built in the nature of the sport. My take on the 3 and Out podcast, it hit me over the weekend. I think the NFL is going to continue to separate from everything else, and it's already in the lead dog, because their games are so much better than all the other games. I'm just talking regular season, right? Because the one thing where baseball and basketball have lost people, we don't watch because their playoffs are still cool. Like you can't watch a sweet playoff baseball or basketball game if you like sports and go, this isn't good, right? Most people are going to agree it's very entertaining if you watch a tight, big game in either sport. But the people don't watch in the regular season anymore. In the NFL, everyone's locked in. Now you can say that's because of fantasy football. Fantasy football, like fantasy baseball and fantasy they die to have people like that locked in and watching the games with fantasy football means you're fucking watching the Bengals. If I live in California, that's a good thing. The NFL's like, that's why we just got $100 billion. You got Middlecoff and Haberman watching the New York Giants game because I got Saquon Barkley and you got Golden Tate, right? Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, whether they're watching because they care about the wild card race or their fantasy team, they're watching the games. Again, it's all centered around the games. Off-season's good, but the games are better. Off-season's good, the games are better. I think, and I've said this for years, the built-in advantage for the NFL is that it's harder to break up, as media has become more fractured, it's harder to break up NFL games into more fragmented pieces. Baseball, with 162 games, 81 home games, has always relied on the fragments of just the volume of fragmented games over the course of a season, adding up to a big number. Basketball, the same. Ton of games, 82 games. The fragments of your games add up to a big number. Well, the NFL, the beauty is that the product is finite. There's 16 games, now 17, right? Now 16 games, now there's 17 games. So, and here's the other thing. There's no my team plays on the East Coast at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night. There's Mondays, there's Thursdays, there's Sundays. That's it. So I can still be 100% of my energy. I can miss multiple days I can take Tuesday off and Wednesday off. Hell, I can take Thursday, Friday, Saturday off. But the main course is going to be there for me on Sunday. And it is so built into everything. It's built into everything in just American culture. It doesn't require. The NFL requires the least commitment from a fan to stay locked in on what's happening. Now you got to commit to some time on Sunday. That's cool. It's Sunday. It's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason Sunday night is premium TV, because it's an easy one. It's the least commitment, and yet it creates the most widespread content. It's
one major issue.
But again, I'll go back to the original point. Sorry, John. It centers around the games.
But also with the games in football, and this works for college football too, they all matter. Now, like one game won't determine if you're going to win the Super Bowl or not, but that individual game matters. And everyone knows it on both sides of the ledger, right? Both teams fan bases, both teams coaches, both teams quarterbacks, both teams general managers. In basketball, they've told us now for years our regular season doesn't matter. We do not care. And in baseball, historically, like they can't care about every single game. It's like it's a long season. You can't tell in our generation we don't care and expect us to give a fuck. Like that's been a huge problem for both sports. And it's where the old people, they're still into baseball, but the younger generation, like, why would I watch? It doesn't even matter. And in the NBA, their stars literally tell you, I don't care about this game. I'm not going to play. Well, why the fuck should I? And I don't. I kind of do. My peers don't. Right? But in the NFL, they would never tell you that. Can you imagine a coach be like, that game didn't? They would never utter those words. Not in a million years. It's why I'm hard on Adam Silver. I think he's let the league get away from him, and he's got a problem. I mean, it's been an epidemic of resting. To me, the tanking thing is less of an issue because there's always been shitty teams. It's more that just like your star players. I've had so many friends over the years buy a ticket to a game, whether it's a Kings game to see a star player, a Warriors game, and they just sit. Like that is, it's basically, I've said it for a while now, it's looking at every guy in the stands and flipping your middle finger to him. And the NFL, the only way the guy's not playing is if he's injured. He's never like, we're giving Jamal Adams, Russell Wilson, DK the week off. Can you imagine? I mean, that would be one of the biggest stories. Like, that would never happen. It may happen week 17 for the playoffs, but that's somewhat understood.
It happens in the preseason, but, it's such an accepted part. It's been such a built-in part of the preseason. It's not the regular season. It's the preseason.
And we kind of all agree that that's somewhat of a scam, charging people tickets.
And they eliminated one of the games and added a regular season game. I think now, by the way,
fans take seriously what you take seriously.
I think baseball's I think baseball's trying. And look, I'm a diehard baseball guy, so I watch baseball all the time, and I think they've done a better job of trying to elevate some of the young, fun guys they got. But again, there is a built-in disadvantage for baseball. Now, they also have if you get something good going, there's an advantage in that you are on every night. So that can be good in a local market, but that's different than talking about a national product. In the NFL, it's a national product, meaning you care about the whole big picture in addition to your local team. Baseball's more about just let me watch my team and see where everything shakes out in the end. I think a great example of the urgency that the NFL creates is the 49ers in 2019, when the Niners were 8-0, and it felt like if they lose a game, which they did at 8-0 to the Seahawks, if they lose a game or two or three, this whole thing, they could all of a sudden become a wild card team, right? They look like the most dominant team in the league, and it still kind of felt like they got to win every week, which of course wasn't totally true because they lost 3 games and still became the 1 seed, but they had to have an incredible year just to hang on to that spot. I think that's a perfect example of making sure that every game matters, because you can very early in an NFL season start talking about how many teams have started 1-3 and made the playoffs, right? All those stats exist because a quarter of the season is over in a month.
You have to care about things if you want your fans to care about them. I think it's really just that simple. I think you and I grew up in a generation where that was less important. In 2021, though, and the way people younger than us think, you'll lose them quick, and they have. I mean, just these other sports. And they have built-in disadvantages, the length of the season. Like, ultimately, a baseball game today just does not matter. And that is just a problem. It just is. And in baseball, you can try to get around it, but it's like that's just a built-in problem and no fault of their own. And then when you factor in, you see Brian Price, Bob Nightingale wrote a long article. He just quit. And he's just like, I hated the way I felt about my sport. And people are like, you're just an old guy. He's like, I hated the game I was managing and watching. And it was not.
He didn't like using the opener?
Just everything about it.
Just doing it off the spreadsheet?
Yeah, he just thought it was boring to watch. Just everything involved with it. It was a good article.
Yeah,
again, you're talking about two guys like I watch a lot.
The bottom line is you got a lot of options. And so the things you watch are the things that are urgent.
And football has that, and the other sports just don't.
But again, I'll go back to the original point. Football's offseason is not better than football season. Yeah, you can get a good month in a given year if there's a big debate about who's the number one quarterback. It's still big, but it's not going to be bigger than the actual season. It's not. And you don't want it to be. You want there to be a lot of stuff around your sport that keeps your sport in the news cycle 365 days a year. But you ultimately have to pay it off. Like, your consumer has to feel like it's building towards something. And with the NFL, it's always building towards the games. And
I think Lefko kind of lives more in the NBA world, and I do think it's true that I think that has overtaken the games, which has ruined the product for a lot of people. Right? Or, ruin the relevancy of the product, which obviously has a precipitous drop-off in interest.
Free agency is a big deal when it's about where's your star player going to end up. But your star players can't end up on different teams every other year.
But I think even the bigger issue with free agency is all these players demanding trades nonstop, like 24. All the sweet players in the NBA.
Right. But that's what I'm saying is like with him, like I get what he's saying. Like if you made a show about free agency, that would be huge. It's true, but you can't keep going back to that well if it's your best players changing teams all the time, because now you have broken all the the connection between the fan and the team is pretty valuable. That's how they get invested. That's what keeps them coming back. My team versus your team, right? If you watch, like I was watching, I told you that Leeds United thing the other day. I watched one episode. These people are hell-bent. Like there was some guy on the team who's from the area, whatever town Leeds is in. And he's like, the fans were like, he's got to step it up. He knows what Leeds means to us because he's one of us. And he needs to be better. I was like, damn. Okay. Like that connection is really important.